I'm happy to introduce our final speaker, which is Greg Perry. He's going to conclude the discussion and wrap it all up, which is just such an easy job. Greg is the Executive Director of the Medicines Patent Pool. It's a UN-backed organisation founded in Geneva just in 2010 to improve access to drugs for people living with HIV in low-income countries. He knows all about managing complex, multi-stakeholder discussions that hopefully lead to improved access to healthcare and to better outcome for patients. So, how do we apply what you've achieved with the Medicines Patent Pool to all of this that we're talking about this afternoon? In 5 easy steps.
5 easy steps in 5 easy minutes, yeah, okay. Well, I just wanted to summarize a couple of points. I mean, we heard a lot about there's a people, and about the importance of the individual, and there was this very inspiring, I think, presentation by Derek on the concept, I think you're saying a social contract for citizens' health. And that based very much around a concept of partnership of Rousseau, if I can put it in modern terms, of government, industry, and civil society, patient groups or civil society. And I think that partnership concept, combined with, I think, this overall discussion here about how do we make new technologies available to individuals quickly, safely, ethically, and of course, affordably, and how is it paid for? I think, if I could sum up, is basically, I think, the essence of what people are all in their various ways trying to deal with. Now, what we've done in the Medicines Patent Pool, we were established by UNITAID. There was the president of UNITAID was here earlier this morning, which is based at the WHO. We're supported by the United Nations. What we seek to do is bring many of these concepts into reality in relation at the moment to HIV medicines, and ensuring that innovative HIV medicines are available to people living with HIV. At that point, I just want to stress the term people living with HIV as opposed to patients. Very important here, and it comes again to something that's said before, how people living with HIV want to be seen as people, not as patients, not as being dependent, but as people with rights. So what we do is we work in partnership with the IP holders, the pharmaceutical industry. We work together then to share their intellectual property, what's known in towards a pool, so as we can do one or two things, either to sub-license those out to generic manufacturers in developing countries, so we can get the products out quickly, new innovative products quickly out in developing countries, or to use the innovation collectively to develop new formulations and fixed dose combinations, for example, very important in countries of resource-limited settings. So we embrace those concepts which are made out today. We put those into a licensing concept, a concept of patent sharing. It's quite revolutionary in a sense. We now have 12 licenses in HIV. We've worked with 6 IP holders, and we have 10 generic manufacturers who are partners developing 50 or have 50 development projects in process to ensure there's this quicker access to these innovative products in developing countries. Now, at the World Economic Forum, there was this concept of leapfrogging. The idea here is you've got to reach a good mass of people affordably and in quicker time than before. So we incorporate many of those concepts. Now, one of the things, of course, we work in a specific area, licensing IP, HIV. We probably will move over into the area of TB shortly. One area I thought was very important, which was mentioned right at the beginning, was technology and data. The importance, I think nobody can underestimate the importance that simply a mobile phone is going to give in developing countries, and the possibility there is there for diagnostic treatment, for testing, even maybe for pharmacovigilance. There's a whole, I think, mass that we've only seen the beginning on now in the health sector with that mobile phone. And coming back to the individual, it's amazing, isn't it? The mobile phone really is an individual thing. It belongs to the person. It's very accessible and brings the whole world into that person, hopefully that person back into the world. So those were my summary points. The only one issue I'd like to bring up is a concept, again, someone raised the solidarity. I think, Derek, I think that was you again. Of course, we live, most of us, in countries which are relatively well off, in countries which are politically and socially and economically inclusive. Of course, a lot of the people that in the developing countries don't have the benefit either of the economic wealth or, of course, having inclusive governments. And I think that is a very significant challenge for the future. And I think that's one of the key ethical issues.
And another question, I was also very struck by the mobile phone usage and the mobile health adoption in countries like India, Brazil and South Africa, which certainly engenders a certain sense of optimism. Also, though, the gentleman from Canada, Dr. BIOVISION, if I remember correctly, no, Baudet, I beg your pardon, he did raise the point that the kind of quality standards, the clinical validation, aren't really in place for those. Is there a role for a UN body or some global standards body, maybe, to get involved in setting quality standards for e-health applications on mobile phones that will not be just, therefore, something that will be sold on a kind of a consumer hype basis, but actually offers real clinical value to the users?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I have no idea about whether or not that's in the pipeline, but it's clearly a point. I mean, we have it in pharmaceuticals, we have it in diagnostics. In pharmaceuticals, we have the World WHO pre-qualification, and I think most of the people in the room will know all about that. So indeed, if we're going to have these concepts used for medical purposes, it's a quasi-diagnostic tool. Clearly, these things have to be applied, and a quality assured product must be available for people in developing countries. It's not a question of non-quality.
And another, maybe a final question, and we will wrap up then, but are there any questions from the floor, by the way, before I actually rudely do that? Anybody want to actually ask Greg from the floor anything? No? Or make a point? A brief one? One final question. This isn't an anti-American question because I write for American publications and I get enthused by a lot of the innovation that happens there. But I'm very conscious of the fact that there is the character of healthcare in America is very different from the characters of healthcare as it's delivered in various European countries. A lot of the technology that's driving this sort of 4P medicine, precision medicine, whatever you want to call it, is being driven from the US. The sort of vision is coming from there. A lot of the core technologies are coming from there. It's also got a recent political push as well from the White House. Is that a good thing for Europe, or is it a potential problem for Europe in terms of Europe retaining its specific healthcare cultures that I think many of us would feel offers better value and better outcomes for our populations than the American system?
Okay, well, I'm certainly not anti-American because all our IP holders that we're dealing with are American companies. So, no, I mean, this is always a big debate, and the US has always been clearly the sort of pioneer in many of the technologies. I don't see a conflict between, being able to develop those technologies and maintaining a system that we have in Europe, which obviously I'm personally very in favour of, which is based on a concept of solidarity. You can use it whatever term you like. And I think we should maintain those, and the US can maybe learn a little bit from us, as we know they are. Yeah. But I think that's also a question for the next session, which I think it's very much about how pharmaceutical industry and pharma industry can bring products to citizens as well as maintain growth. So I think we need to bridge those things. It's always this issue, isn't it? Bridging innovation together with accessibility. And I think when you create systems that try to do that, I think you're really seeking to make progress. In our small way, that's what we're hoping to do as well.
Okay. Thank you, Greg, and thanks to the panel. Obviously, this is a very complex area, and I hope you've been enlightened rather than confused by what you heard this afternoon. Obviously, not all the questions can be answered in any one session, in any one place. This is an evolving story, and I think we're all learning as we're going. One take-home message I have is Finn's point, actually, that gives me a certain amount of optimism, that small things, little things can make a big difference. I think that's one thing I'm going to think about when I go home as well, that small, simple interventions. We talk about frugal innovation in developing countries, but things are moving, things are changing, and we don't have a full vision, but we're trying to get some sense of what it is. Anyway, I thank my panel, and I thank you for listening to us, and please would you give a warm show your appreciation for the panel, and there are very interesting talks this afternoon. Thank you.